Thank you, Mrs. Ryan. Delighted to serve under your chairmanship. Can I thank those thousands of people who signed the petition in my constituency of Stroud. And I'll start by saying that I'm angry. Now, I'm a mild-mannered person, as most of you would agree to, but I just think that this is something that I never thought I'd see in this mother of parliaments. And remember, we are the mother of parliaments. We created parliamentary democracy. And parliamentary democracy works because the government runs parliament. Maybe that sometimes isn't as clear as it should be. But also there is a degree of fair play between government and opposition. And that is completely broken down to the extent that we are now given a whole series of guns to our head. Go for a general election, go for no deal, as if that is what a parliament should accept. Now, if this was some banana republic, we understand the way in which the president might manipulate it. But this is the British Parliament. And this really is a very dark day in terms of the way in which this parliament operates. Now, I'm reminded of an episode of The Likely Lads. Sorry for all those who are very young here. But there's a wonderful episode of The Likely Lads where they are trying to avoid the result of the England football game. So the whole story, the episode, is they spent the whole day disappearing in and out of pubs because they don't want to know what the score is. And because it's on the recorded highlights and they just want to watch it as though it was a live game. And of course they get to the very last thing and on a beer mat is written the result of the game. And what it proves to me is you can hide, you can run, but you will always be held to account somewhere. And the government with prorogation feels very much like that at the moment, because prorogation is about trying to avoid being called to account over some of the most important things. Now, you know, I do bear a grudge because I spent 37 hours of my time in the Agriculture Bill as our opposition spokesperson on this side. Other people were with me. No matter how badly I did try my best. And the fact is, those 37 hours I'm never going to get back. Now, I might be fortunate enough to have another 37 hours because the bill will come back, hopefully, in some form. Now, why does this matter? Well, if I'm trying to actually plan out my farm policy, trying to work out what I'm going to grow next year, what animals I'm going to keep, I need to know the system of agriculture. And yet that's in abeyance. Yet, okay, we can carry on with the existing CAP, but I thought we were trying to get out of the CAP. That was one of the drivers for leaving the EU. Now, in terms of that, that's bad enough. But I also spent an awful lot of my hours in statutory instruments, some of which by now will be out of date. Now, it wasn't our decision to have a 2-year parliament. That was at the behest of the government. Some of us feel that that was a mistake and Parliament should have an annual programme. But this government decided it would have a 2-year programme. It's come back to haunt us. The Agriculture Bill left this place well before Christmas of last year. Therefore, we've had the best part of 9 months waiting for it to come back. I understand through the usual channels we were offered a deal. Let it through, and then we won't say anything else about it. Well, with the best one in the world, we did have some arguments against the bill in its current form. That's bad enough, but as my honourable friend has said, I think 2 honourable friends have said, fisheries is even more drastic. If we drop out with no deal, the Scarlet Wars that happened over the Christmas period are just a foretaste. People will start taking the law, whatever that may be at this moment in time, into their own hands. If we weren't debating this today, I was supposed to be summing up for the opposition on cages, animal sentience, and so on. Again, all that is in abeyance. We do not have a clear statement. The law doesn't exist anymore. We chose not to put it in the trade bill. We have an animal sentience bill, which is currently, I don't know whether it will be part of the carryover or whether it will be not. Now, does that matter? Well, of course it matters. If you're trying to prosecute someone who's mistreated an animal, what law do they use? Do they use the law that used to exist or the law that could have existed if we'd have allowed it to go through? So these issues really matter. It's not about us on the opposition side just kicking off. It's about the way in which we are being precluded from doing our job. Now, again, I just think, and I would have raised this as a point of order, I'm now getting through from various departments, and I'll mention them, DEFRA, the department I shadow, DCMS, and the FCO. I'm now being told that parliamentary questions cannot be answered because of the prorogation of Parliament. Now, I put these questions in over the recess. One of the great things that Speaker Burke, we could all go on about how wonderful he's been and so on, but one of the great things he did put in place is you could ask questions that were answered over the recess. I thought that was a dramatic improvement of not being able to do the job we're supposed to do by holding the government to account. I've now got 3 departments telling me, in advance of prorogation, anything could happen. We could choose not to prorogue tonight. And yet these departments have told me not going to answer it. And that doesn't mean that they're not going to answer in the future. It means they're not going to answer. The questions go down. That is wrong. It's wrong for me because I've got to put them all in again. But other departments have answered. So will the government, through the minister, put on the record what is the process when you're about to prorogue of whether departments answer a question? Dare I say, some civil servants seem to work very hard to get you an answer. Other civil servants just say, well, here's a 2-line thing, we're not going to answer it. To me, a lot of this is the way in which Parliament isn't really running by the rules anymore. I mean, the idea is that Parliament holds the government to account. At the present time, it seems Parliament is held to account by this government, and we're used as a sort of, well, we'll answer when we want to, we'll let you take in part in debates if you have to, but really this is subject to our whims. My friend Graham Allen, when he chaired the Constitution Committee, when we had one, the Select Committee, looked at this thing of should we have a written constitution. I feel very strongly on the last couple of weeks we must have a written constitution. It is wrong that Parliament cannot actually hold the government to account. We should have rules on when prorogation takes place. We should have rules on what happens when departments answer questions or not. This really matters because it's about the way in which we as parliamentarians, whatever party we come from, and whether we're in the government or the opposition, we have to have the security and knowledge that the job we're doing is one that cannot be undermined. Otherwise, we talk about this Parliament losing the confidence of the people. They will lose confidence increasingly because they think that really the government just rubber stamps whatever it wants. And that is in a time of a hung Parliament, and this government is a very hung government for all sorts of reasons we know about. So it's important that we have this justification of what is going on, and that is put into some form of arrangement so that the rules are much more transparent, open and fair. Because I think what is going on is undemocratic. It's unconstitutional, given that we've not got a written constitution. It's a mess, because I think you try and explain to your constituents what we're all up to at the moment. It is not easy. My emails, sometimes I think, do I understand what I'm writing? Because it changes from minute to minute, and it is very unclear what our stance is, whether we're government, opposition, or whatever. And I do think, deep down, this is a shameful period in our Parliament, and we should actually be doing something about it.